Good morning, Lily here. You're walking with me on this beautiful Saturday morning at about 7:30 a.m. It's gorgeous here, and I just wanted to take a moment to talk to you about a subject called liquidity. Now, liquidity has to do with liquid assets. Liquid assets are those that you can readily turn into cash. So if you have a $5 bill in your hand, you have $5 of liquidity because it's already cash. If you have a check in your hand for $5 that you can present to a bank and turn it into cash, that's the next level of liquidity. If you have some garage sale items that you want to sell on Saturday at the garage sale, that's a little less liquid because first of all, you have to wait until Saturday, and secondly, you have to wait for someone to pick that item out of your garage sale and buy it. Okay, so that's kind of the difference in levels of liquidity. And if you have your money in like a 90-day certificate of deposit, that's a whole lot different than buying a 10-year treasury bond where your money is tied up for 10 years. And the concept here is that the longer your money is committed, the more return it should generate for you. Now, how this works in real estate is important because it depends on what you're going to be doing with your real estate. If you're an investor who's looking for long-term capital gains, then you're going to buy a house or finance a house and expect it to grow over time. However, if you're looking for shorter-term returns and want to get your money back so that you're back in the liquid marketplace again with your original cash investment, you're going to first buy the house, spend money on that, fix it up, spend money on the repairs, and then you're going to put it on the market and hope that someone buys it. Now, depending on the momentum in the marketplace, if you have a great flip at a great price, it will probably sell quickly if there's not a lot of inventory competing with it. Even when there is a lot of inventory, houses that are fixed up to a T are the ones that sell the fastest. And you can then generate that return on investment. It's a short-term return on investment, presumably, because if you're flipping houses, you have, a 3 to 6 month horizon on that, or less, if you're really good. But you have to actually sell the property to get your money back out of it. So how do you sell your place quickly and still make money? Because you can have a great place that's really a top seller, but if you over improve it, for one, and you underprice it, for two, what happens to your profit? It gets real squeezed. And then on top of it, if you're not a real estate agent and you have to hire someone to sell your house for you, there's another 6% or 5% or 4% or whatever rate you negotiated with them. Because as the seller, you pay the entire commission out of your net proceeds. So when you're improving a house, first of all, when you're selecting a house, it's important to buy below market. Now, a lot of times that involves going to auctions or buying real estate owned properties, i.e. bank owned foreclosures. And those can be risky because typically when you're looking at the properties, if you can look at them, sometimes they're all boarded up and you can't get inside until after you own them. But in other cases, you can tour the property. However, the power and water is usually not on. So you have no way to assess the working condition of the HVAC system, the pumps, the wells, the drains in the bathrooms, the the electrical system. You just can't check any of that. And the people who are selling these homes know that there's a risk involved in it, so they typically discount the homes. But then you have the added complexity of trying to win the auction. You can do online auctions these days, but God knows I spent 4 months trying to win an auction because I just didn't bid high enough. And my thought was, well, before I go in, I was very disciplined, and before I go in, I'll pick a maximum that I want to spend on this house, knowing or not knowing what I know about it. And once you meet that maximum, you don't want to become emotionally involved and just keep chasing the deal. So if you reach that max and you didn't win, you just have to let go. On the other hand, I've had some really close calls where I set my max and I was bidding against 6 other people, and then it was just down to the 2 of us, and I'd hit my max, so I disciplined myself to get out, and the last person, won the bid by $250 or something like that. Ridiculously low amount. So in some cases, if it's that kind of a scenario where you're really close and you really want it and you have a little room left in your budget, you just might want to go head to head if it's just you and one other bidder. And sometimes you can see how many people there are in the auction. But in those cases when I didn't win, sometimes I would turn to a wholesaler to look for inventory. And they had already, in that case, purchased the property and were looking to turn it to somebody else because maybe they didn't want to rehab it. They just like sitting at their computer competing on auctions. And when they get these properties, they actually go and they take a video tour of it once they have the keys. And then they put that out on Craigslist or some investors network and try to wholesale it. And you're allowed to do that. The way it works in escrow is that if you get into a deal with a wholesaler, typically doesn't completely own the house yet. He's just under contract. So he's got 30 days or 45 days or whatever it is in his contract to negotiate and close the sale. Sorry, not negotiate, because the price is fixed usually from the auction. But you have an inspection period, and you usually have a financing clause if they allow that. Or just simply you have time. So he goes and remarkets the property, typically at an inflated price. Depending on, what market you're in. One would hope it wouldn't be more than a few $1,000s, because a wholesaler who's selling to another flipper or another investor isn't really probably going to do very much to the property. So you're buying it in more or less the same shape that the wholesaler got it in. And for them to try to make 10 grand off of simply just owning it, and doing nothing to it is sort of a lot of money for a 30-day turnaround. I don't want to pay a wholesaler that much, but I'll pay a couple grand just because time is money, and if I can get going on a project, I stand to make a lot more than that couple grand that I spent on the back end. And I deduct that out from the cost of doing business and the net profit on the entire deal. But the way they close those deals, it's called an A to B to C close. Crossing the street, excuse me. And what happens is it's a simultaneous close wherein the wholesaler is in the middle. Closes one deal with the original bank or seller, and then the other deal with you, the new buyer. It all happens at the same day, and an experienced escrow officer can handle an A to B to C close. And unless it's strictly prohibited, like in some cases the FHA or Fannie Mae does not allow a transfer of title until after 90 days has elapsed, well, that case it wouldn't work. But other times it works really well, and you can get a property from a wholesaler and not have to bother with the auctions. But you still need to do your inspections like you would do for any other property before you buy it, and except in the case of an auction when you don't have access usually to water and power and sewer and all that. But when you buy from a wholesaler, they'll typically turn the electricity on for you, turn the water on, hopefully. And if they don't, you can ask them to do that as a condition of your deal. And say, my deal, yes, I'll pay you $5 grand over whatever you paid, if they even tell you what they paid. But I want you to turn on the water and the power, and I want the right to back out of this deal and get my money back if the property doesn't pass muster. So those are some tips on buying flip properties at auction, from a wholesaler, and just from the straight out marketplace. So good luck with that. Next time we'll talk more about inspections. All right, Lily, over and out.